So IIT Bombay is very highly regarded internationally. It is well known in at least among university circles, and in industry it is extremely well respected. According to the rankings, we are around 200 in the world. But in terms of perception, people think much more of it, and we are ranked quite high. If you look only at engineering and technology, we are ranked around 50 in the world. But in many ways, I feel in terms of the quality of education that we provide and the kind of students who come here, we are very high up. Given the trajectory of the institute in the next 10 years, we can see that it will have a much greater impact. We will see students having more opportunities for trying out new things and pursuing more advanced topics in their education and so forth. And of course, I see that our institute will become much more research oriented. So through those, they will make a greater impact, and I'm sure that they'll make important contributions to the growth of the country. I think it's comparable. I mean, see, one is the course content, and the second is who's teaching that. And I think that we really have an advantage on both those fronts. That anyway, we are teaching material that is at the cutting edge, but those who are teaching are also very highly qualified, and so they have an in-depth knowledge, and I think they can convey that to the students very well. The stress comes because of the competition. So unless we do away with grades and give everyone A's or something like that, that's not going to happen. And another factor of the stress is just the amount of the rigor of the courses that you have to just. So it's a double-edged sword. In the sense that if we make everything very easy and you just go through, then you'll have a nice degree at the end, but you won't be as well prepared. Whereas if you're given a good education, then that will serve you for many years later. So certainly, I mean, we would like to see how sometimes I've heard like students are trying for internships, they don't get it, then they feel stressed, or various other things. They're trying to get some position of responsibility, and that creates their own stress. So there are many things going on in the institute. It's not just, I think maybe only about 1/3 or 1/4 of the time is spent on just the courses and things. There's so many other things going on. But we'd like to generate an atmosphere here, an environment here, which is collaborative, and that people don't feel that kind of stress. And if they do come under pressure, that they're able to handle it. So things like counseling and all, I think, are very important in this. But changing course curriculum, I think, may not help much, because it's not really to do with the curriculum, it's more to do with other factors. I think the degree itself is very useful for getting your first job. But once you join, then nobody asks like, oh, did you come from IIT or did you not come from IIT? Then they look at how you perform. So I would say that those who have taken advantage of the education that is provided here will benefit the most, because they would be the ones who can apply their knowledge or whatever attitudes and things that they have learned here in their job, and that helps them to succeed. Because finally, once you start working, it's your performance in your job that matters the most. I mean, obviously, I mean, the key thing is that do you find the work interesting? That do you find the kind of things that a chemical engineer does interesting? And I think that is the key sort of deciding factor. And really, it is very difficult to know before you start what is chemical engineering. It's only when you're in it that you can actually figure it out. And many people, they decide as they go along. Let's say you got into chemical engineering, then what part of chemical engineering do you like? Because there's, there could be things that are closer to electrical engineering. For example, if you're doing things like control and stuff like that, that sort of comes closer to electrical engineering, or you could be doing things that are closer to chemistry, or you could be doing things closer to material science or biology, depending on which particular branch of chemical engineering you choose to pursue. So I think as you go forward, you discover those things, and then you also discover what is it that you like. I mean, are you more interested in doing design? Are you more interested in getting a deeper knowledge and doing, let's say, research? So as you do that, you develop your likings and so forth. So really, I mean, this so-called IT culture is only what you see at the consumer level. A lot of chemical engineering goes into, let's say, for example, the mobile phone that you're holding. A lot of, let's say, for the Intel, the CEOs of Intel have been chemical engineers and material scientists. So when you want to actually make something, I think that chemical engineering becomes very, very important. But chemical industry doesn't come and sell directly to a consumer like Google does or something. But there are big chemical companies which make products which are then sold to others who put it into consumer products. So there is a really vast chemical industry, which I mean, in which whether you look at bulk chemicals or pharmaceuticals or materials, you need chemical engineers to make steel, cement, and so I think there is a lot of scope in all these fields, and there is a lot of IT now within chemical engineering also, because we use IT tools to essentially be more efficient in doing chemical engineering. I have been working for the last several years in a few fields. One relates to polymers, where we are looking at processing of certain types of very special polymers. These are these piezoelectric polymers, which if you press them, then they create a small charge, and they're used for sensing applications and various other things. And another field that I've been working for many years in is to look at the fundamentals of how particulate materials flow. That is, how do powders flow, and can we come up with models to describe that. So that is also another very important area, because a lot of the chemical industry deals with solid products which have to be handled, and those tools are not as well developed as, let's say, fluid mechanics is. So, one of the things that I used to track, but I haven't seen recently, is that in the US, chemical engineers are the highest paid amongst all engineers. And that used to be because, of the very diverse range of industries that chemical engineers work in. I mean, they work in the semiconductor industry, they work in the chemical industry, bio industry, and so forth. So there is a lot of scope. In our country also, there are, like just the petroleum industry is so huge, and there's lots of openings there, and there are many pharmaceutical industries. So there are many job openings. One of the things that is a sort of barrier for many students is that the starting salaries are somewhat lower than, let's say, if you go for an IT job or a finance job. But when you reach the top of these industries, managing directors or senior managers, they are earning as much as the senior managers in any IT company or any other company. So there is a lot of scope and there is a lot of opportunity in all the fields. So there's a sense of tremendous freedom when you come to a place like IIT, that you can do anything you want, and there are many options in terms of sports or things like these type of activities like associations and so forth. So I really enjoyed myself there, because one is that you have a really great bunch of friends, and then there's lots to do, whether it's playing games or participating in various clubs and so forth. I mean, this practice of studying together, I don't know if it still goes on, but we would, before difficult exams, we would be doing studies together and so forth. I think that's also was quite enjoyable and very good for learning. And then in my last year, I got very involved with my BTech project, which was a year-long project. So it was an experimental project, so I spent a lot of time in the lab, and in that lab I was the only student working, so it was a great experience. And I don't have any regrets of the time I spent there. It was a really very enjoyable time, and I mean, I'm still in touch with all my friends. Yeah, I think that the new people joining, that they should try and take full benefit of what is available. One is, I mean, academics are really something that should be the main focus, because if you take your attention off academics, then everything else is finished. So academics should be number one, but then you have to make time for everything else.